Welcome to City Council meeting for November 7th, 2022. Items listed on the agenda may be taken out of order. Two or more agenda items for consideration may be combined, and any item on the agenda may be removed or related discussion may be delayed at any time. With that, I will call the meeting to order. Madam City Clerk, could we have a confirmation of the agenda posting and the roll call?
Yes, thank you. The agenda was posted in accordance with open meeting law, and all members are present.
Thank you. And we have Pastor David Graham here this evening for the invocation, so all rise if able.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I pray, I want to say on behalf of the people I know in Boulder City, thank you for this particular board and for your service for the past years. I understand this is the last time you'll be meeting exactly like this. And one of the great things you guys have done, you've brought Tammy up and hired these two brilliant people over here. And that's wonderful. And we're going to miss you guys and all the hard work you put in. Nobody really knows how hard it is to do this kind of job, the kind of stuff you do when you're not here. It's kind of like my job. People think I only work on Sunday, but that ain't the case. So thank you very much on behalf of all the people of Boulder City. We love you and appreciate you, and we're going to pray now as we begin this meeting. Thank you, Father, for your faithfulness to each of us, Lord. You've put us in certain places at certain times in our lives where we have the opportunity to be a blessing to others. And so I ask, Lord, that you would give favor to the people that are in this room tonight. Thank you for your goodness. Thank you that we still have in Boulder City the privilege of allowing people to come and pray before we do a meeting, acknowledging who you are, that you are the creator of the world and the one who loves us deeply and sustains us, protecting us when we're not aware of it, guiding us when we need it. And so thank you, Father, for the opportunity we have to serve this community in this way. In the name of Jesus Christ, our Savior and Lord, I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Graham. We'll have the Pledge of Allegiance now. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Madam City Clerk, do we have public announcements or public comment?
I have 3 members who signed in for a public announcement, but if you are here for public comment, you can wait until the public comment period opens. But I just do want to remind you, the first public comment period is for items related to the agenda. So just so there's no confusions, especially to our newest member of the Boulder City Review. If you do just have a public announcement, you can come up during this time.
All right, we will then proceed to our initial public comment period. As mentioned by Madam City Clerk, comment during this period of time is for those items that are listed on the agenda. Each person will have up to 5 minutes to speak. As always, we ask that you be civil and concise in your comments. Is there anyone present that would like to speak in public comment? Please come forward. And I think there's a sheet there, if you could record your name and then state your name.
I am Mary Ralph, and I'm president of Emergency Aid here in Boulder City. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm here to comment on item number 11 that is on your agenda for this evening. And on behalf of Emergency Aid in Boulder City, we would like to increase our ARPA money that you've given us. We need to, since the pandemic, we have had an increase in rent and utility assistance for our residents here in Boulder City. At this time, we've exhausted all of our grants that our organization has been eligible for, and there has been no new grants that have come to us, allowing us to apply for them. We've had multiple people this past year losing their homes or being evicted, either due to the landlord wanting to sell their property or just wanting to raise the rent, and the resident could not afford the amount that they were raising the rent for. We also have had a dramatic increase in rent here in Boulder City. And as you can see from our fiscal year of last year in 2021, we paid out in rent and utility assistance $158,670. This current year, starting July 1st through October, we have already spent $135,490. Some of the residents are coming to us for also move-in expenses, so they'll come for first and last month's rent and also security deposits. The security deposits are not allowed by the grants that we have, so if we have been able to help them out with that, it's been out of our own donations and income that we have. We've had people coming to us for childcare that has also increased. Some of our residents have been getting fewer hours, even though despite a lot of our businesses that have the help wanted signs, they either don't qualify for the jobs or their hours have been cut. Or stagnant pay, rising cost, as we all know about inflation, and the rising food cost. Our food pantry has seen an increase of people using it this past fiscal year. We're up to last month at 700 individuals using our food pantry this month. So I would like you to consider increasing our amount that you have been so generous with us, to increase it for another $50,000 for assistance for rent and utilities for our residents here in Boulder City. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in public comment? Dr. Lagoon, if you'd like to sign in there and state your name, please.
Yes, thank you. Fermin Leguen, District Health Officer, Southern Nevada Health District. And thank you for allowing me to talk to you, and also I want to congratulate you at the end of your term, those who might not be members of the council in the near future. I wanted to talk to you about a request for funding that we are asking to support construction of our public health lab. And I want to say that this public health lab is a facility that provides services to all Clark County and also neighboring communities. This is a facility that is heavily engaged in supporting multiple services, not only directly related to infectious of communicable diseases, but also supporting activities related to prevention of bioterrorism and law enforcement related activities like white powder incidents and those kind of things. This lab, during the pandemic, especially at the beginning, was heavily challenged by the increased demand for testing for COVID, but our concern with the lab is beyond COVID. It's about the need for expand the capability of this lab to provide adequate and enough testing here in Clark County. And this is a service that cannot be easily quantified for any community in particular, because this is a preventive service. So the biggest value from the lab is not how many cases they diagnose, but how many cases they prevent, and the support they provide for investigation from our disease surveillance team, and also investigation for partners like law enforcement. So we understand that the council has allocated already funds for multiple activities that are really needed in this community, just like the previous speaker mentioned here. And so we are not asking you to consider us like competing with anybody here, but we want you to consider the feasibility of assisting us in funding this lab if there are available resources from any project that might not be coming across. So I just wanted to share that with you, and again, I want to thank you for your service. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Anyone else wishing to speak in public comment? All right, if there's anyone wishing to call in for the initial public comment period, the phone number is 702-589-9629. Again, this is the initial public comment period for city council meeting.
Comment?
Yes, I'd like to make public comment.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, thank you. This is Judy DeShane, and I had a couple of items. One of them is item number 2 on the consent agenda about not having, it sounds like you are canceling expanding the public gardens for people to rent plots to grow things. And you're going to do a sign for the high school, I'm assuming? It's because it's for the Eagles. I think our $75,000 is better used for gardens with the cost of food and everything else, and the gardens rent for a reasonable amount of money. People would have more use and better use of the $75,000 to grow food, as opposed to a new sign or an upgraded sign for the high school. And I could not find anything, which I probably was not looking in the right place, about this having been someplace else on an agenda where it was proposed or read, a bill or resolution. I couldn't find any place, so I don't know when this change came in or why. So I would like some discussion on that and some explanation before you guys do away with gardening and build a new sign. And then item Item 8 on the airport leases. The last time this came up, we had some people that had multiple hangars down there, and they were paying maybe $100 a month, $75, $100 a month to the city to lease the land, but they in turn were subleasing their hangars for, $400 or $500. Now, if there's that kind of a demand and whatever, I think that extra money that we can lease it for should go to the city as opposed to going into a private individual's pocket. So I would like to see the leases, when they're finished, be handled the same way the first ones were. I think that is the best use and the fairest way, because then other people in the community would have an opportunity to rent a hangar if they had a need or had a plane. And then item 11 and 12, the ARPA funds for emergency aid. Now, emergency aid is really the only organization we have here in town that helps out our low-income people. And we do have a great number of low-income people. So it talked about, I realized we have only 26,000 that hasn't been allocated. So if we're going to reallocate, I would like to see it go to emergency aid, as that will stay here in our community and help our community. 12, on the Southern Nevada Health, I understand they need some help, but with the economy and everything as it is, a $10 million new $10 million facility seems a little extravagant, because yes, I truly feel we're going to be seeing a recession. So if anything, it's going to have to be a minimal amount for the Southern Nevada Health District. If you guys feel you absolutely have to do something, it should be a minimal amount, not a ton. And then the same goes with number 14 and 15 is for the police contracts. And it's not that our police department doesn't deserve the very best, but there again, we are not going to be rolling in dough by any means over the next few years, and I think we need to keep that in mind when you guys discuss these or agree to all this money going out. And I guess that is the limit of my on the current agenda. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. The phone line is available. Anyone wishing to call in, the number 702-589-9629. This is the initial public comment period for the city council meeting. Anyone wishing to call in, the phone number 702-589-9629. Madam City Clerk, were there any emails received for public comment?
No written comments were received.
Thank you. All right, hearing no others, we will close the initial public comment period and move to approval of the regular agenda. Madam City Clerk, any changes?
No changes.
Madam City Attorney?
No changes.
And Mr. City Manager?
No changes.
Thank you. Council members, any changes for the regular agenda?
Yes. I'd like to remove item 13.
Okay, that's an item I've requested. Obviously, I don't support that. I think it's a very important question, but any other changes? Anyone wishing to make a motion then?
I move to approve the regular agenda with the removal of item number 13.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So we have a majority to remove item 13, with Councilmember Adams and myself being in opposition to that. Again, there is information in the packet that I hope the public will be able to get some use out of. We'll move then to approval of the consent agenda. Madam City Clerk?
No changes.
Madam City Attorney?
No changes.
And Mr. City Manager?
No changes.
Thank you. Council members, any changes for the consent agenda?
No changes.
Anyone wishing to make a motion?
I move to accept the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That, anyone opposed? That passes unanimously. Brings us to item number 4, presentation by Dr. Christopher McMahon regarding the Nevada State Railroad Museum. Dr. McMahon, thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, City Council members, and thank you for the citizens of Boulder City for allowing me this opportunity. For the public record, Dr. Christopher McMahon, Museum Director, Nevada State Railroad Museum, Boulder City. I'm here tonight to talk to you about what's going on with the museum expansion, and I would like to begin by first thanking you and the city staff here for the wonderful support both the council and staff have offered as this expansion project has progressed through its various stages. For those that don't know, this project has been ongoing for the better part of a decade now, but we're in a position now where things are steadily moving forward, and that's what I'm here to talk to you about tonight. I did bring a presentation with me, so we'll go ahead and get started on this, and I'm going to be very brief and respect your time tonight, so if I'm moving too fast, please just let me know. So the first question is, where are we looking at? As many of you know, the museum campus expands approximately 3/4 of a mile between Yucca Street and Nevada Highway. What we are looking to do is a 3-phase expansion project that builds out the site. And tonight I'm going to talk to you about what's going on with phase 1, the construction of a visitor center, and the appropriate infrastructure that accompanies that. So the location, as you see, is there on the corner of Boulder City Parkway and Nevada Highway. This is where you make the left-hand turn to go down towards the dam site. As all of you know, that's the majority of the way that the tourists visiting Hoover Dam are taking, and so it provides a good opportunity to get visual recognition for people who may not have necessarily initially planned their visit here to Boulder City or to stop at the museum. It's an eye-catching experience that draws people back into the community after they visited the dam or perhaps even before. So what does this site look like? What we are envisioning at the center of this is a brand new, approximately 10,000 square foot visitor center. With that, it will include a parking area, a loading and unloading area for school and tour buses, a welcoming plaza, as well as a new passenger loading platform for our excursion trains, which depart on Saturdays and Sundays. Now, you guys may recall that through the consent agenda earlier this year, I believe it was September, you did approve the lease of a parcel of city land on this corner to the state of Nevada for use in the museum expansion. I believe you guys have a right to know what we plan to do with that. And so that parcel is largely going to be the parking area and the welcoming plaza you see there. I do want to note one of the pieces of feedback we received from the community when we held our stakeholders meeting in October was the lack of shade in this plaza. That's already being adjusted, so this image is slightly dated in the fact that we've already taken that advice to heart and are adding shade for the general public as you all know, in summer it's going to be a little crispy out there. So good to have some shade out there and allow our visitors a broader opportunity to experience and be involved in the town. In the visitor center, this is designed to be an educational experience. Education is at the heart of what we do in the museum system, and we intend this site to be a premier educational facility, not only in Southern Nevada, but in the state of Nevada as a whole. And so with this, you're going to see exhibits both built into the floor, like the map you can see there at the bottom of your screen, as well as interpretive exhibits that explore the importance of history of railroading, both here in Boulder City, as well as Nevada as a whole. There will be a small theater that'll tell the story of the roughly 150 years we are interpreting, as well as new museum store and multi-purpose room. This multi-purpose room is both for use as a classroom, for doing museum activities, as well as providing a meeting space for the community, something we don't really have a lot of here in Boulder City. So this gives us one more area for the community to meet and come together. There'll also be public amenities such as restrooms available and additional office spaces for the staff, as well as the addition of an actual archival storage space so we can get our collection into a protected environment. The timeline for this project, and again, this is just for phase one, is as follows. The funding for this project is coming through the use of conservation bonds, which was previously approved in the prior legislative session. So what we're looking for in this legislative session is just the final approval to move forward with the project. That should come hopefully spring or early summer of the following year, 2023. By summer, we intend to have 100% construction documents. We are well on schedule to achieve that. We have our 50% document review coming up next month, so there should be no problem having those documents ready to go and the project being shovel-ready when the legislature approves that. We'll go out to bid for construction sometime early 24, with construction beginning later that year. Construction should wrap up in late 2025, with the museum opening to the public in early 2026. That's basically the overview of the project as it currently stands, and I do want to afford you the opportunity to ask any questions, as I know we went through that really quick, but I do want to respect the community's time here.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Councilmember Jorgensen?
Thank you for the presentation. I've been down there. It's a great place already, and I can't wait to see what's coming next for it. I know that at the furthest end away from that is where you store engines and different parts of the trains. Will that stay down in that area, that kind of covered area?
Yeah, so there's the current use of the museum is going to stay. Those elements will remain in place. You'll have the maintenance facility that's on the west end of Yucca Street. The current outdoor display area that currently exists will also remain there. So you'll have two ends of the property being utilized. We also intend to keep a rail bike vendor on site, like the one that's currently operating there. And that'll be the area that their tours leave from, while the excursion trains will leave from the new platform center. That helps create some safety buffers and makes it just an overall safer operation for everybody. And then in the long term, in phases 2 and 3, we'll look at expanding that out a little bit more. Particularly in phase 3, we'll add an indoor covered area for artifacts, rolling stock in particular, locomotives, train cars that people can go through, as well as additional shade structures near the current area on the west end of the property. So that's the long-term plan, and we're looking forward to seeing that really fully develop so people can have a full museum experience.
Great. I also know that they have like a little train there that you can ride for the kids. My grandkids love that. Will that be staying?
Yes, it's a 7.5-inch railroad, commonly referred to as a live steam railroad. That's staying in place. They've made some minor adjustments to accommodate the new access road that's going to be built, but their operation will be staying there as part of the museum's interpretation. And we're actually looking at it expanding it a little bit, not necessarily in length, but in the fact that we're going to add interpretive elements so it's educational as well as fun. So that'll definitely be coming as part of this expansion project, not going anywhere.
Great. I really love this for our city. I love the opportunity for the people to come and have another experience with history, to be able to see it up close. And so thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Adams?
Thank you very much for the presentation. I think this is going to be a great addition to our community. One thing I did want to make you aware of was recently Boulder City was the recipient of a $1.9 million grant to retrofit our public lighting to make them more night sky friendly. And so I just wanted to provide you with that information so that as you guys are considering how you're planning to light the community, that you look into ways for proper shielding, proper light distribution. Not that you guys wouldn't be doing that, but I always think it's good to let everybody know what we're trying to accomplish, and however it can be, those goals can be achieved. It would be great if we're able to join in that with you.
Thank you, Councilmember Adams. And when I saw that the city had approved the Dark Skies Initiative, I did make our architects aware of that, and they're looking at ways to incorporate that and be part of the community effort to achieve that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate hearing that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Dr. McMahon, I know that your predecessor, Mr. Hees, had put a lot of effort into this. A lot of people in the community have as well. I think it's going to be a wonderful project for the city. The work that you and all the volunteers do out there is just amazing, and it's going to be a real asset for us. So thank you for your hard work on it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you once again to the council for their continued support of this project.
Thank you. All right, item number 5, consideration of bill number 1923. Mr. City Manager?
Yes, the next 3 bills will be handled by Angela Mannanen, our acting finance director, and these are all 3 solar lease option agreements.
Hi, Angela Mannanen. The first bill for 1923 is for Boulder Solar Power, which first entered into a lease agreement with a lease of 1,500 acres in December of 2011. In 2014, the agreement was later amended to become a formal option agreement with a form of lease. Several partial options were exercised in 2015 and 2016, which created Boulder Solar Power 1 and Boulder Solar Power 2 projects. The current option agreement was last amended in 2020 to extend the option exercise deadline to December 31st, 2022. The proposed amendment extends the option period to December 31st, 2024, increases the options payments owed, and other minor clarifications and modifications to the former lease, including energy storage at the rate of $2,500 per megawatt. The option agreement amended sets option payments at $130,000 for calendar year 2023, $133,900 for calendar year 2024. The formal lease rent rate is $1,700 per acre per year, and a rate of $2,500 per megawatt of energy storage per year. If no energy storage is constructed, the tenant chooses to lease the remaining 764 acres. Upon exercise of this option, the first full year rent payment would be $1,299,871. And the applicant, Larry Green, is here for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Green or Ms. Mannanen? Anyone wishing to make a motion regarding bill number 1923?
I move to approve bill number 1923.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. We'll move to 1924.
Okay, thanks. 1924 is Silver Peak Solar, which first entered into an option agreement with a lease of 276 acres back on January 8th of 2019. The agreement was later amended on September 22nd, 2020 to add several small parcels outside the dry lake bed for a total acreage option of 350 acres. The current option agreement will expire December 31st, 2022. The proposed amendment extends the option period to December 31st, 2025 with revised option payment schedule of calendar year 2023 of $107,000, calendar year 24 of $110,000, and calendar year 2025 of $113,000. $522. The former lease rent is variable, depending on the sub-parcel to be leased. The rent per acre ranges from $700 to $2,675 per acre per year, and a rate of $2,500 per megawatt of energy storage per year. If no energy storage is constructed and the tenant chooses to lease the remaining 350 acres, the first full year rent payment would be $402,000. And again, the applicant, Larry Green, is here for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions on this item for Mr. Green or Ms. Mannanen? Anyone wishing to make a motion on bill number 1924?
I move to accept bill number 1924.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Apparently that brings us to 1925.
Nice. So Bill 1925 is Boulder Flats Solar, which first entered into an option agreement of 1,100 acres on November 10th, 2020 for a 2-year period. The current option agreement will expire December 31st, 2022. The proposed amendment extends the option period to December 31st, 2024. Other minor changes have been made to the option agreement and formal lease, including a provision for energy storage. The option agreement amended sets option payments of $192,000 for calendar year 2023, $198,000 for calendar year 2024, and the formal lease rent is at $1,600 per acre per year. If no energy storage is constructed and the tenant chooses to lease the entire 1,100 acres, upon exercise of the option, the first year rent payment would be $1,767,984. And the applicant, Robin Ciez, is here for questions.
Thank you. Again, any questions for Mr. Sayers or Ms. Mannanen? Anyone wishing to make a motion on bill number 1925?
I move to accept bill number 1925.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you, Ms. Mannanen,
Thank you.
although you may have something to do with the next one, or perhaps not. Item number 8, matters pertaining to airport leases. Mr. City Manager?
Yes, this evening, Mr. Bryce Bolt, our Administrative Services Director, will be starting this off, and then we have our Airport Manager, Marissa Adu, here as well.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Bryce Bolt, Administrative Services Director. Yeah, before you this evening, an item for possible discussion and discussion of possible action, and it is relative to land leases expiring for hangars out at the municipal airport. Ms. Adu put together, I think, a very thorough and complete staff report for your review and consideration, and had backup material also for that supports elements of the staff report. Myself and her are here to help facilitate your discussion.
Thank you. Any questions or comments regarding this item? Councilmember Jorgensen?
Yes, so we're not going to go into the more in-depth into the two contracts that were presented, or the two proposals that were given to us.
The options,
Yeah, the options.
and we'd be happy to help facilitate discussion on any and all options relative to this.
Could you just quickly give a recap of the two proposals options?
All right, let me have my little friend of Marissa Adu do that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. We had listed in the packet for you in the staff report 3 different options. There's a month-to-month option that we can move forward with. It can be a fair market value rate or a triple net rate. Any of these options can be. There is another option that is a 3-year, 2-year contract option that we could move forward with. And this can, again, we can use a triple net rate or a gross rent rate. There's also another option, which would be to do an RFP, and we can seek a property management company or an entity to come in and lease that whole area from the airport.
Just curious, has this gone before the Airport Advisory Committee to be looked at?
No, this is not. It's not under the duties outlined in the resolution for the advisory committee.
Councilmember Jorgensen, believe there's something prepared for you on this item before.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Thank you, yes. I do need to disclose, so I'll pull that up. I'd like to disclose pursuant to NRS 281A that I have a commitment in a private capacity with one of the tenants impacted by this matter, Mr. Kyle Larson. My husband and I share ownership of a limited liability company with Mr. Larson. This LLC owns an airplane that is stored in Mr. Larson's hangar that is subject to one of the ground leases being discussed. And thus I also have a pecuniary interest in this ground lease. Nevertheless, I've been advised by the city attorney that Nevada ethics law favors the right of a public officer to perform the duties for which the public officer was elected. And because this hangar lease would not be impacted more or less than the 67 other leases being affected, Nevada law favors and allows my participation and action on this matter. Thank you for the reminder. Okay, and so back to no, the airport advisory has not had the opportunity to look at this. Okay. Okay, thank you.
With regard to the lease rates, could you go over specific dollar amounts between the three different proposals, the month-to-month, the triple net, and the 2 or 3 year?
Sure. We obtained two different appraisals with two different appraisal companies. And they provided us with an annual rate for triple net, which would be an option that we could, a lease agreement where the occupant would maintain the facility and lease at a lower rate. The other would be a gross rate, which the city would then maintain the hangar and pay for all utilities, etc. They provided us with a number of different rates. One appraisal company broke it out into different types of hangars, a box hangar, executive hangar, small T hangar, or a large box hangar, large T hangar. And those rates varied, and the average gross rate was $4.72, and the average triple net rate was $4.52 from the Anderson Appraisal Company. The other appraisal company provided us with two rates. They did not break the hangars down out like the other company did. They gave us a rate for a gross rent, which would be $6.70, and a triple net rent of $4.75 per square foot per year.
So we're all pretty close to one another as far as the appraisals go.
Yes, the second appraisal done by CBRE was a little bit higher with the gross rent rate.
And the triple net, according to the Anderson appraisal, worked out to be a couple $100 difference per year.
It was $4.52 for the triple net. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, and $4.75 for the two different ones.
Okay.
And then the gross was $4.72 versus $6.50.
All right. And we've had one set of hangars now on the monthly lease for a couple of years, I believe.
That's correct.
And how has the maintenance, upkeep, operation impacted your city staff?
It's a small impact to staff looking after it. We have relied on Public Works to assist us with repairs that they are able to. If need be, if it's a larger project, they've come in and worked on the weekend or Friday or Saturday, and we've paid their overtime for that. If it's a larger item that they're not able to repair, we've hired in a company to repair doors once or twice. So it hasn't, the numbers for our maintenance costs are listed in the packet as well. The most significant is fixing the fire alarm systems in the hangar, and that is to be completed this year. It'll cost about $125,000, and then we have like $30,000 in the budget budgeted for just general maintenance if anything breaks or anything like that.
And the fire alarm situation, that actually existed when the prior lease expired?
That's correct.
Okay, so it wasn't something that was new after the
No, it wasn't.
hangars had reverted to the city?
No, it wasn't. It was, it did need to be completely repaired. New panels needed to be installed, so it's almost a new system.
Okay, yeah, I'm just getting at that, you know, it wasn't maintained, or the system hadn't been maintained
That's correct.
by the prior leaseholder. Okay. Councilmember Bridges?
Yeah, previously in the first group that went through the reversion process, we went with the gross rate as opposed to the triple net. Correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And then in terms of appraisals, we were required to take the average of the two? No? Yes? Yes.
Oh, okay. We are.
Yes, okay.
The city attorney has corrected me.
And from what I read, that the way that the current occupants of those hangars could continue to occupy those hangars on an individual basis could be the 3-year, 2-year, correct? Or the month-to-month. Because if it's a long-term lease, then it has to apply to a group as opposed to the entire group as opposed to an individual.
Well, the longer-term lease has to be a competitive process.
That's right.
It would be a little bit complicated to make it apply individually. I suppose it would just be more complicated to do it that way.
Okay, so it was a competitive process in terms of the individual hangars.
Yeah, we'd have to auction all of them, essentially. We'll do a request for proposals for all of them. Or Nevada law does allow we can enter directly with the party, but the caveat is that they're short-term, 3 years with a 2-year renewal.
Okay. And then also, if a occupant wanted to take advantage of a 3-year, 2-year, or 2-year, 3-year, that would be their option, or would this have to be an overarching decision on all of the hangars in that group? Or could someone say, I want a month-to-month, and somebody else say that they wanted the 3-year, 2-year option?
Well, the direction we're seeking is, we suppose we could give them the option. That could be the direction that we're given, is month-to-month or 2-year, 3-year.
Okay, so
2-year.
So we wouldn't have to say everybody's going to be a month-to-month. We could say that somebody could have that particular hangar on a 3-year, 2-year extension.
Well, I have to think about that because we do, we have to treat the similarly situated similarly, and there is waiting lists for these hangars as well. So I don't have an answer to that question tonight. I'd have to think about that a little bit more.
Okay, so the best option would most likely be a consistent option for
everything.
everyone involved. And
Yeah, and then the RFP for the property management company is the simplest way to, if we did an RFP for a property management company, then the property management company would choose the tenants. So that would be, I think, the simplest way if you want to do a long-term lease.
Oh, on long-term lease.
Mhm.
And all of the hangars in the previous group are month to month, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And has that been a complicated or fairly simple process to manage?
We've had a very low turnover rate, so it's not been too complicated in that respect.
Okay. Because that's one of the things I've heard, about this is a very complicated process for the city shouldn't have to manage this whole process. And I was just wondering whether, it's manageable for the city to manage the process of leasing the hangars.
Mhm. We've created a process and work through that for each individual as we get that individual.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Jorgensen?
How many current hangars are under that process that we were just talking about? That we
Rent out month to month?
Mm-hmm.
28.
28. How many would be in total if all of them were reverted?
With there's 140 hangars out there.
How would that process look with 140?
It would be a little bit more taxing, but there would be a procedure, and you'd just have to go through that procedure for each one.
Would we most likely have to hire someone to be able to maintain those hangars?
Yes, if we had all 140 hangars, yes, we'd probably look at hiring additional staff just for maintenance.
Okay. For maintenance. Okay, so, and if I'm looking at this correctly, and I do have a question. So if you did renew or enter into a new lease of 3 years with the possibility of an extension for a two-year renewal, could there be multiple of those? So once that expired, could we do another 3-year lease with 2-year renewal?
Yes, yes, we could. It would have to be reappraised at the current value, but once that 5-year expires, you could enter into a new lease.
I think I'm in favor of a new lease agreement because I do believe the old lease, which we are under, it's not fair market value right now, so that's for sure. But I also don't want to see us hiring another person to be able to maintain them if we could limit our liability in that direction and have them maintain their own. So I think that's the direction myself, if you're looking for some direction from myself that I would like.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Councilmember Adams?
Thank you, Mayor. Just for clarification, when you discussed, equal treatment, making sure that, these things, we could, since we are talking about a separate group of hangars right now, we could look at that and say we want to do triple net 3-year, 2-year for these ones and have that not be in conflict with having the other set that are currently month to month and maintained by the city, correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's really my only question. I think since we already have the option available for month to month for those who are looking for that product, I think that's good that we have that. And then I think it would be worth then considering having other option available for those who might be looking for something a little bit more, substantial in time, if you will, so for a little bit more investment in that length of stay. So I think, 3-year, 2-year, if we want to go with triple net, I think that's something to look at. I mean, I guess as far as work goes and direction for drafting, if we go to with the month-to-month draft, if we were to just say make that a 3-year, 2-year, there's not a whole lot of change in the amount other than the amount of time that it's leased.
No, the appraisals came in at the same rate, whether it's month to month or 3-year, 2-year.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. I mean, I think either way, whether we go triple net or with city maintenance, I think that 3-year, 2-year is the direction that I think would be best to offer a separate product or availability for those seeking it.
Thank you. I'm not sure about the comment that Councilmember Jorgensen made about things not being at market rate right now, unless that means that the values have increased. So right now, we're not charging enough.
No, I'm not talking about the 28. I'm talking about the other ones.
We have a current appraisal, so I'm not sure what you're getting at, that it's not at market rate.
Appraisal would be how the new leases were written. I'm talking about the old leases.
I believe we followed the same method with obtaining appraisals for those.
I don't want to speak for Councilwoman Jorgensen, but I'm
No,
interpreting.
no, I'm asking that was based on appraisals that were done at the time. I know that you were not the city attorney at that time, I don't believe, but,
The month-to-month, yes, those are at the appraised value at the time those were entered into.
right, so it's an older value now, it's a 2-year-old value, but it was done based on appraisals, it wasn't something that was just made up.
I not interpreting that as what was being said. But yes, they were done based on appraisals.
Well, again, Councilmember Jorgensen, when you say that it's not at market value, I'm not sure what you're referring to.
What I'm referring to is the fact that their leases for the past years have remained at a constant rate, correct? And have not increased over time, because that's not how the lease was written.
That's correct. The leases that are agendized today, the ones expiring in 2023, 2024, and 2028, those are leased at the value they were 30 years ago.
And that is what I'm talking about, is that value no longer is the same value as today's fair market value.
That's correct.
Thank you.
So then I'm guessing the expectation would be a substantial increase over that 30-year period of time? That would be the expectation?
The actual expectation would be that we've done some studies here and we've had some comps done, and that we would look at those and we would determine a fair market value for the new leases, as far as if we renewed leases for 3 years and a 2-year extension option.
Okay. All right, again, I'm just trying to understand your concern on this, because I believe that's the intent of appraisals, is to arrive at a current fair market value. Okay. Again, your comment that it's not a fair market value, that's true. They have not seen an increase, not paid additional revenue
Right, and
to
that
the
was my
city
point.
for 30 years.
And that was my point.
Okay.
So I think that was my point, is that it's gone a long time without an increase, that it is time to change, because that is not fair market value any longer. And I think they recognize that that has been a nice gift for them for a while, right? And that we're going to have to evaluate that when we redo the leases. That's just the way it has to be.
Yes, and again, I think that's a requirement of state law. Is that correct, Madam City Attorney, that these have to be done? The value has to be based on what current values are according to state law.
Yes, new leases, dispositions of land must be at appraised value pursuant to our charter as well as NRS.
All right. You had mentioned too the difference between this triple net and having the city manage this. Do you have an overall dollar amount on what that difference would be between those two types of leases, say on an annual basis?
Yes, I do. I provided a fund overview, if you just let me grab it. So if you look at if you follow along Exhibit A in the packet, the projected budget with a 3-year, 2-year option, this would be at, at the gross rent. So if we were just to do this at gross rate,
Do you have the page reference in the packet for that?
oh, I don't have the page reference.
The,
79.
Can you show us the document?
Exhibit A is in B. Exhibit A is in B.
It's page 709 in the packet.
thank you.
Uh-huh.
So there's a lot of numbers on there. So the question is, versus the city handling the maintenance on them and the tenant occupants being the responsible for the maintenance, what would be the dollar difference between those two?
The dollar difference would be approximately $20,000 to $50,000 a year less that we would spend in maintenance, depending on the year that they revert and the number of hangers is what I kind of calculated that on.
Okay, and that assumes that they actually do the maintenance, and we just discussed the fire system that was not maintained and resulted in significant cost to the city, to the airport fund, to bring that back up to standard.
Correct, yes.
So that's always a possibility when you have people who are allegedly responsible for maintenance who don't do the work and wind up leaving or just not doing it.
That's correct.
Okay.
We,
Well,
you
there
know,
were
there-
annual inspections before, so, for 30 years, and we had a broken fire alarm system, so.
During those annual inspections, was it made known to them that they needed to fix those?
They were aware that they needed to be repaired, and we were working with the tenant to get them repaired.
And how long were they aware of that?
I don't recall. It was a few years. It did change ownership at one time too. That group of hangars.
So it's a
So-
specific group of hangars?
Yes, for that specific group. Yes.
Okay.
And again, the difference between these types of leases, the current month-to-month ones, there is no end date on those leases, is that correct? They're just month-to-month, and every lease we've had, the one that has expired, the ones that are coming to their expiration, and the current month-to-month lease, I believe those all have a clause in there for termination of the lease by either the city or the airport, and the tenant on, I think it's a 30-day notice, it could be 60-day,
For the month-to-month agreements.
yes.
Yes.
And I believe that's the case also with the longer-term leases that are currently in effect and the one that recently expired.
No, there's no clause for vacancy like that in those agreements. Those are, unless there's a default, the city can pursue a default, and you would no longer have the facility then if you didn't cure the default.
Okay? Would it be anticipated in whatever version of lease that might be determined that that provision would be in the lease? I'm looking at protecting the interest of the airport fund, that if someone is not properly maintaining a unit or engaging in other activity that's disruptive at the airport, that there would be a possibility to have that tenant evicted from the occupancy.
The agreement could be structured in such a way.
These agreements would be different in that they would take place once the hangar has reverted. And so because the hangar is reverted, we would be leasing both the land and the hangar. So the occupant would be a tenant in all respects and could be evicted for both non-monetary and monetary breaches of the lease. Whereas currently, the tenant owns the hangar. They are only the tenant for purposes of the underlying land. So that is why there's no ability to evict at this point without monetary default.
Great deal for 30 years. Again, I don't know that it's all that critical. I don't really see all that much difference between a 3 and 2 and a month to month. There's obviously a bit of a dollar difference between whether they're responsible for the maintenance or whether the city is. The concern that I do have is, are they going to be maintained? Because the first group of 28 hangars, you know, a very important system, the fire alarm system, was not maintained, and they had been made aware of that and had not taken action to repair it or put it back into working condition. So that's a consideration, that it's great for people to say, well, I'll maintain this, I'll take that cost on, but then not do it. And as I recall, when that first group of hangars reverted, it wasn't an extensive amount of work, but there was some work that was needed on doors and a few other items. I believe some water systems had to also, you know, some hose bibs had to be repaired or something done with them.
That's correct.
Okay. Councilmember Bridges?
Okay, I'm going to go back to something. I did ask you at the beginning. So the original hangars are a month to month, and they're gross rent, right? And it's the maintenance is provided by the city.
That's correct.
Okay, and then the fire systems was something that was discovered, and that is being fixed by the city.
That's correct.
Correct. I have a second question, and that is on the 3-year, 2-year, the rent stays consistent over that 5-year period, correct?
Correct.
So in a way, it guarantees a rent to the occupant.
Yeah, we could have escalation clauses annually if that's something that can be typical in a lease.
Okay, but in the month to month, when they pay for the next month, at any time the rent can be raised? Is that how a month to month typically will work?
Yes.
That if there's
Yes,
a reappraisal at any point, then that could go up.
that's correct.
So a tenant might be more interested, you know, it's hard to know whether the tenant would be more interested in knowing I'm going to be paying for this, you know, if there wasn't an escalation clause in there. I personally like the idea of not the triple net, of the gross, you know, that it's, if the city and the airport, if the airport wants to maintain control over the maintenance of the hangars and know that certain things are being done in a timely manner, and wants to oversee that, I think that the gross is better than the triple net. And I like the 3-year, 2-year. I think that it might give folks who are the occupants a sense of, I know I'm going to be here. Now, on a 3-year, 2-year though, they are obligated for the 3 years, the first 3, correct? So if they wanted to terminate the lease, could they? Or is that?
Typically, they're obligated for the 3 years, but there's assignments of leases. You can assign the lease.
So they could
to
assign the
workers.
lease if they moved out of town and wanted to assign the remaining part of that 3-year lease, they could do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
typically.
Okay, wonderful, thank you.
Yeah, I would just like to cover also on that well, you have a guaranteed rate. Again, I think we always have to go back to what the law says regarding value. And the idea that, well, we'll give them these longer-term leases and we'll lock in one rate and it stays that way. There's a whole bunch of people right now that would love to have their home lease, their apartment lease. You know, I have a storage unit that I've seen significant increases on. And to say that the airport fund is just going to let folks do that for 3 years, 5 years, and never have to worry about an appraisal or a change in the amount of rent that they're paying, that does not seem to be in compliance with the state law, that things are being done at the value of that product. So I have a real concern about that. I get that that works in favor of anybody who has an interest in having an airplane down there, but I don't know that that works for how the airport fund is supposed to be generating revenue that supports the airport. So absolutely, I believe if it is going to be a longer term or multi-year lease, there absolutely has to be something in there that would tie it to CPI like we see on many other products, but to say we're just gonna lock you in at this and regardless of what happens, that's all you're gonna pay, that doesn't sound like the type of contract that would be in compliance with law or even a wise business move. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Fox?
I just want to say, I like the idea of the 3-year, 2-year lease agreement and the gross rent, not the triple net.
Thank you. Anyone else? Would you like somebody to form a motion or?
Yeah, and whatever option you choose, and certainly have an escalator as part of the 3-2, that's, we could bring back that product for review then to the council.
Well, what I'm hearing is a preference for this 3-year with a 2-year renewal at the gross rather than the triple net, and that it would have a provision in there that would tie it to the CPI or Consumer Price Index for an annual increase. Councilmember Bridges?
Yes, and I would like to make sure it had that assignment clause in there so that if somebody was going to move or sold their airplane or such and wanted to assign the hangar to another occupant, that they could do that.
And again, I think that they currently have something like that, but it is subject to approval by the airport staff or city staff. Is that correct, Madam City Attorney? There's some language in there that they can't just do that.
Typically, assignments can be made to, say, an affiliate without consent, an affiliated entity, but it is typical if it's a completely different party to have approval of the landlord
All
for
right.
assignment.
Would that be acceptable, Councilmember Bridges, to have that assignment with approval by city staff?
Right, unless it's, well, like you said, if it's, if there are two people who are, in some cases, you have joint ownership of an airplane and two people on the lease. If they wanted to assign the lease only to one person, that wouldn't be necessary unless, as she said, it was a completely new person who would be assigned the lease.
That's how assignment clauses are typically in real estate contracts.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Councilmember Jorgensen?
So if we did gross versus triple net, gross being that we maintained, triple net being that they maintained.
Yes, ma'am.
If we maintained 144 hangars, would it still only be 50,000 that we see that? Because I do believe we just heard that we've been paying overtime on weekends sometimes for them to come fix some of those hangars. So I don't think that we could have the staff that we currently have running out to fix those all of the time. I felt like we would probably either have to hire somebody or a management group of some sort, and 50,000 seems awfully low for that.
No, I don't think 50,000 would be for all 140.
So it would change the
It would
amount of
change.
money that we
Some
see
hangars
coming
are
out
in
there.
excellent shape. I'm sorry to interrupt, but
No.
some are in excellent shape and some aren't, and that would be a variable depending on the grouping that reverts in that given year.
So just looking at 50,000 as an expense would not probably cover all of
I
that.
would say not
Thank
for
you.
140 of them.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other comments? Well, I can restate that. Again, it does appear to be what the majority have stated, that the 3-year, 2-year with a 2-year extension or renewal at the appraised value for the gross value, subject to an annual review with regard to the consumer price index, and the clause for transitioning the lease to another with approval by city staff if it's a unnamed individual.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1 with Councilmember Jorgensen dissenting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bryce. Mr. Bolt. We'll now move on to item number 9, matters pertaining to the land management process. That must mean Mr. Mays.
Yes, our Community Development Director, Mr. Michael Mays, will be walking you through these 2 land management process applications.
And again, just to mention it, we'll be counting how many times the word plan is used.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, members of City Council. Boulder City is unique. The city owns most of the land within the 208 square miles of our jurisdiction. As a result, 21 years ago, the city code was amended to provide for a transparent process and an opportunity for the public to provide input very early on in the consideration of the disposition of city-owned land. This would be for lease and or sale of city-owned land. This is the land management process. So each year, the city solicits applications, and we bring those to the council for consideration. This year, the city has received 3 applications for your consideration. And the steps in the process involve this first stop here before the city council to have the city council consider whether you even want to entertain the application requests. Those that you advance forward then go on to the Planning Commission for consideration. They provide a recommendation, and then it comes back to the city council for final action before February 15th of each year. And the council then votes to add parcels to the list. And those properties that are on the list can be considered for subsequent lease and or sale. And of course, as the council and the public knows, properties for sale over an acre require a vote of the people. So what I'd like to do is highlight briefly the 3 applications for your consideration this evening. Maps and the applications are contained within your packet, and we'll start with what we refer to as 2301. I also have that on the screen here. Desert Link LLC is requesting to add 35 acres in the El Dorado Valley for utility uses. They'd like to lease the land for a future 500 kV substation. Ross Holt will be available via phone to answer any questions the council may have. And as you can see, it's proximity within the El Dorado Valley, along the major transmission lines, and west of many of the solar projects. Moving on to what we refer to as 2302. This is VS Western Ventures LLC, and they're proposing to add 6 sites along I-11 to lease that land for billboards. And as you can see on the screen, we've highlighted the areas identified by the applicant for use of those billboards. Billboards are prohibited in our city code. Further, the airport staff has concerns about the proposed location of several of the billboard sites and potential conflicts with runway approaches and airport operations. Victor Sahojan, probably destroying his name. He's available in the audience to answer council questions on this item. Moving on to 2303. Southern California Edison previously had a temporary license agreement with a city that has since expired in the existing El Dorado Valley substation, which you can see on the map. And the property in question that we're discussing is highlighted in red. They'd like to add the 3.5 acres highlighted in red to the land management list to continue operations at the substation and provide additional transmission lines. Jay Glasser is available via phone to answer any questions with the council. And so again, what staff is looking for tonight from council is direction on whether to advance any of these three applications on to the Planning Commission for consideration and then back to the council for final action. And with that, I will answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Councilmember Adams?
Thank you. The only item that really does concern me is the second request for the billboards. Just considering the fact that billboards are not currently allowed under Boulder City Code, I think it would be inappropriate for us to move forward at this time. If that were to ever change, I'm not suggesting that it should, but that would then be the appropriate time to consider this if that code was amended. Other than that, the other two I am comfortable with.
Thank you. Councilmember Bridges?
My thoughts exactly, that in terms of the utility additions to the land management process, to the list on land management process, I do support 1 and 3 and have an aversion to the idea, well, and since we don't allow them to begin with, to the billboards.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Fox?
Yeah, I don't like the idea of the billboards either. I would love to have small businesses have their signs up on I-11, but, that just opens the door for everybody else, and I don't want it to turn into the 15 freeway on the way to California. And so that would be my only issue with that.
Thank you. Anyone else? It's not the first time we've heard about billboards, and it is in the city code. It has been considered in the past, whether that wants to change. I certainly don't think it's a good idea to have billboards along that area. When we cut through that area, it certainly put a mark on the land, but it also opened up some views, and I would not have my preference to be looking at a billboard out there, and I've not ever heard from anyone in the community that that's something they desire to see. It's just inappropriate, and if you look at what we have, yep, there are some billboards along US 95 on the way to Searchlight. Those are on privately owned land. Those proposals have been made in the past, and I just don't think it's something that we should look for. With regard to the other two, these are things, one of them I believe is for a switch yard, the one that's being requested by Desert Link.
It would be for a potential future substation.
Yeah. Which obviously they must feel there's a demand for out in that area. And then the other for Southern California Edison, the purpose of that again?
Again, it's an existing substation. The license agreement expired. They want to continue operating at that site, and this would allow them to do that.
All right. Well, again, I think that both of those are appropriate. In looking at the LMP, will that be considered to look for items that need to be removed from there?
So, per our code, once an item has been on the list for 3 years, it automatically comes back to the council for reconsideration. And that occurs when this comes back to you before February 15th. And so you would take action at that time to both add or remove items from the list.
The reason I ask is I see that the property there on, in ABC Park, the commonly referred to as the Old Boys and Girls Club, I believe that was completed as far as transfer to the library.
Correct, and that doesn't it doesn't require formal action because that was given to the library. That will automatically come off.
All right. Well, any other questions or comments? Why don't we take these one at a time then? LMP 2301, which is Desert Link. Those, I would move for that to be placed, or excuse me, to be considered by the Planning Commission.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, 2302, I would move that that not be presented to the Planning Commission and not be considered for inclusion on the land management process. Almost said plan there.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And then the last item, 2303, for Southern California Edison. Again, I would move that that parcel be forwarded to the Planning Commission for their consideration.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I think we all got through this without saying plan, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mays. Item number 10. No. Madam City Attorney, were you going to handle that one?
No, we have Angela Mannanen here to present.
All right. Ms. Mannanen?
Hi, Angela Mannanen. So typically, liquor licenses don't go to the city council, they usually go to the license board, but this is a unique situation. And it did go to the license board on October 10th, but this is a Class C service bar license for Matt Fox, who's the owner of the Boulder Dam Restaurant. The service bar is to service the tables of the restaurant for consumption on premise. The Boulder Dam Restaurant will serve breakfast, lunch, and a steakhouse-style dinner. Servers will prepare drinks and serve to the tables looking to serve mimosas, Bloody Marys, and other drinks. Applicant holds other liquor licenses and is in good standing. Applicant has been approved by the Boulder City Police Department. Applicant has applied for and been approved for a Boulder City business license. And just due to the abstentions at the license board, there was no quorum to vote on this, so it's brought to you today.
Thank you. Madam City Attorney, anything to add? I think we have a series of disclosures.
That's correct.
So should we just start from one end and go to the other?
That sounds good.
Okay. Councilmember Adams?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to disclose that Councilmember Fox is my colleague on the council. I have been advised by the city attorney that it is not a conflict of interest pursuant to NRS 281A, and I may participate and vote on this item.
Thank you. Councilmember Fox?
All right, pursuant to NRS 281A requires me to disclose a conflict of interest. Item 10 is my application for a liquor license for my restaurant located at the Boulder Dam Hotel. I have a significant financial interest in this item, and because this is a clear case of disqualifying conflict of interest, I'm going to be abstaining from voting in this matter.
Thank you. I am disclosing that Councilmember Fox is my colleague on the City Council. I have been advised by the City Attorney that this is not a conflict of interest pursuant to NRS 281A, and I may participate and vote on this item. Councilmember Jorgensen?
I too would like to disclose that Councilmember Fox is my colleague on the City Council. I've been advised by the City Attorney that this is not a conflict of interest pursuant to NRS 281A, and I may participate and vote on this item.
Thank you. Councilmember Bridges?
I would like to disclose that Councilmember Fox is my colleague on the City Council. I've been advised by the City Attorney that this is not a conflict of interest pursuant to NRS 281A, and I may participate and vote on this item.
Thank you. Anything further regarding the item, Mrs. Mannanen?
Not unless you have any questions.
The only question I have is this had been a similar existing type of business? Had there been a liquor license at that location previously?
Yes. Yes,
Of the
there was a
same-
liquor license, and there is a liquor license currently. This is just for an additional service bar,
Okay.
right? Or no, I'm fibbing.
The former restaurant had a liquor license, yes.
Oh, okay. Yes.
So no substantive change.
No.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Anyone wishing to make a motion? Excuse me, Councilmember Adams?
Yeah, I would like to move for approval of a Class C service bar license for Matt Fox, owner of the new Boulder Dam Restaurant.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Ms. Mannanen. That's unanimous for granting the license. Item number 11, discussion and possible staff direction regarding ARPA funding. Mr. Tedder?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Tonight, before you is a request to consider increasing funding to Emergency Aid of Boulder City in the amount of $50,000. The request email was included in your packet. The council has previously allocated $50,000 to emergency aid in ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan Act funds. Currently, about $11,319 remains of that $50,000, and they do intend to utilize that funding. Emergency aid does provide vital services to the community, including rent and utility assistance, a food pantry, and more. All of Boulder City's ARPA funds have been allocated except for $26,000 in unrestricted funds. I have included in your packet a list of the ARPA funds and how those have been allocated. Staff would recommend that you utilize possibly reallocating restricted funds, since this would be an approved use of restricted funds. One line item in particular, the test kits and vaccines line item, there's about $101,000 remaining in that line item, and could be easily reallocated. The only reason that we had spent about $13,000 out of that line item was when test kits were unavailable and we had to order our own. I stand for any questions and happy to discuss in any way.
Thank you. The president of Emergency Aid spoke during public comment. They've made it aware or made it known that for whatever reason, their other sources of grants have not currently been renewed. Ms. Ralph, are you still here? Yes.
Yes.
Could you expand on that a little bit? I know there was some discussion about United Way normally provides some funding for you, but they've not said no, is my understanding, but they have not said that they're going to renew your grant.
So this past year, EFSP 39 was also ARPA-R, and it was for November 2021 to April 2020. We have used it all up. We had phase 39, that was $18,945,000, and ARPA-R was $58,555, and that has also been used up. So we were, it was for till April of 2023, and it's already gone. Usually EFSP will have an application that will come out sometime in the fall for us for the coming, for that year, and since this went to 2023, we're not going to have any more money. And we don't know if they're going to have an EFSP 40, which would be taking the 23-24 fiscal year.
All right. Any other questions? Councilmember Bridges?
I do have a disclosure. I would like to disclose that I am the volunteer grant coordinator for emergency aid. And though I perform this position as a volunteer without compensation, I do have a commitment in a private capacity to emergency aid. I have consulted with the city attorney and believe that this relationship would likely impact the judgment of a reasonable person in my situation on this item. Additionally, this funding is for emergency aid only and not for a group of similarly situated persons, so the group presumption does not apply. Therefore, I will be abstaining on this item.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Adams?
Thank you, Mayor. I will just say that I believe that, yes, if we still have remaining funds available from test kits and vaccines, which we do not believe that we will be spending, I think that that would be an adequate place to reallocate ARPA funding from to help emergency aid. So I think the $50,000 from that amount remaining would be spent well with emergency aid.
Thank you. Councilmember Jorgensen?
Yes, I also just wanted to say we appreciate what you do for our community and how you help those who are in need. And I just do have a question because it's a little concerning. This is like a one-time allocation, you know, kind of like our little Christmas gift. And so I worry a little bit about the future and what that looks like as far as, are there any other grants on the horizon that you would be able to apply for that might be able to, in the future, supplement?
Well, we're hoping that for the 23-24 fiscal year that the, you know, the CBDG grant that we get from the city, that we'll be able to apply for that. The OAG grant, that would be another source that we would get. Generally, we have, before the pandemic, we've been able to manage with those two grants. And then the EFSP, the United Way grant, we have been able to think that ends up being about $50,000 we've been able to manage. And then with our donations that we receive from our generous community, we're able to manage our needs. Unfortunately, like I said earlier in my comments, people's rents and utilities have just skyrocketed. And they're finding themselves in situations that are just mind-boggling. You know, a woman today came to us whose spouse died last week, and she's already worrying about her rent for December and her utility bills for this month and also December, because it's going to take a while for Social Security to get turned over for her. That's just somebody who has had a good income source over the years, who's similar to a lot of us here in Boulder City that aren't poor in, working just minimal jobs. There are retirees, and some of our people during the pandemic that we helped were working and making over $70,000 when they were working, but you know how the pandemic was for many of us. They didn't even get to work for months, half of a year, and we were so blessed with all the federal grants that we had. I hope that answers your questions.
That does. I, too, feel like if we could move the monies, that this would be an appropriate use, especially during these times where we still have a little bit of recovery going on from something that was unprecedented.
Thank you. Anyone else? I know that this has been going on since the pandemic started early in 2020. We did have CARES Act funding initially. That was used for these types of purposes. The American Rescue Plan money, this is within those guidelines of the structured money. Is that correct, Mr. Tedder?
Correct. It grants to nonprofits and other quasi-governmental organizations are approved uses of restricted funds. So the city received over $21 million, and $10 million of that can be spent in any way, and the remainder, approximately 11 plus million, has to be under the restricted uses, which includes the water, wastewater infrastructure, and then nonprofits.
Thank you.
If I may say something, there was a $400,000 that was given to the county this past year called CHAPS. I think it was in 2021. And our residents had to go through the state, through the county to receive that money. We do not know how much of that money was used by our residents. But there were many residents who came to emergency aid during that time asking for help because they were so far behind in rent and had applied for the CHAPS money and did not know where they were in the queue. I had, some resources in the county that I would turn to Clark County Social Services and ask them, and sometimes I would get assistance and sometimes I wouldn't. And, those people were coming to us for multiple thousands of dollars in rent, and were, on the cusp of being evicted. And once all that eviction moratorium was dropped, I'm sure that the judge can speak on that behalf of all the people that are losing their homes because of that.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I think Councilmember Jorgensen had referred to it, that this money has been received by the city. This is one of those uses that the restricted funds are allowed for. The other money has been allocated. And Mr. Tedder, I don't know that we've ever had a discussion about the allocations that have been made would not utilize the amount of funds that have been allocated for those uses. What I'm getting at is there may not be additional funds unless we go back to other projects and reevaluate those.
Correct, and the ARPA spend plan will always be somewhat of a changing document if projects come in lower than anticipated, which hasn't been the case lately, but I'm hopeful. But as we go along, we'll see where we're at, and if there's any projects that are no longer viable or come in under what was budgeted, then it can be reallocated and could be used for further support of nonprofits like this or other programs or initiatives that you'd like to do.
Thank you. Councilmember Jorgensen?
And the test kits, I just want to make sure, and the vaccines also fell under the restricted, so this is why we'd be able to just change the title on there maybe, or give some of that money from that area.
Correct. So essentially what would occur after receiving direction tonight, city staff will bring back a resolution to reallocate that funding in the amount of $50,000 to emergency aid if that's what the council so chooses.
Anyone else? Well, again, if you would like a motion, I think we are in agreement that utilizing the unallocated $26,000 and then removing or redirecting $24,000 from the test kit and vaccine fund for the total $50,000 that emergency aid is requested is appropriate.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Appreciate all the work emergency aid has done for this community over the past couple of years. Item number 12, regarding the request from Southern Nevada Health District.
All right, this is another ARPA funding request. A request letter was sent to myself from the Southern Nevada Health District for ARPA funding. The Southern Nevada Public Health Lab is what they are looking at expansion for, and it safeguards the public in our community. They have made requests to other organizations as well. Clark County allocated approximately $5 million towards this project. The city of Las Vegas allocated $1 million, and it's a $10 million goal that they are looking for. The city of Henderson has not allocated any funds thus far, and as we discussed before, our ARPA funds have all been allocated except for that $26,000 that you just allocated. Other projects could be reduced or reallocated to accommodate requests for funding. We do have Dr. Lagan here from the Health District to speak on this project a little bit more if you'd like to hear more about it. I've also included with this item the ARPA funding spend plan. So if you were amenable to allocating funds, the same sentiment would apply to this request. It could be used as restricted funds, so you could further allocate funding from the restricted projects, including the test kit vaccine line item that I mentioned earlier. Looking at per capita pricing, so Las Vegas is about 647,000 people, so that's about $1.55 a resident, and Clark County is about 2.92 million, so that's about $1.71 per resident. So that would put us around 15,000 people, around 23 to 25,000 if we were looking at the same funding level as the others. I'm here for any questions, and Dr. Lagan is in the audience to answer any questions you may have of him.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Councilmember Adams?
Thank you, Mayor. Obviously, I had discussed this in previous board reports that SNHD was seeking some ARPA funding for some much-needed upgrades, most importantly, the expansion of their lab facility. As we heard during public comment, the current facility is responsible for identifying and monitoring potential pathogens that might pose a risk to our community, and is currently inadequate to meet the current needs of that demand. So I believe that this project is exactly the type of project that ARPA was considering, and the types of projects that should be funded. I know that it was said that Clark County and Las Vegas have already contributed, and I believe that Henderson and North Las Vegas, while they haven't yet, I believe will be considering it. And so I believe that it would be in our community's best interest to allocate, at the very least, the remainder of the unspent funds for the test and vaccine kits, especially considering the fact that much of that has been provided over these last 2 years by the Southern Nevada Health District itself. So I feel that that would be a reasonable, more than reasonable request. As far as other areas, I know dollar amounts, how much we can or can't. I just think that this is a very important thing that is very needed, not just for our community, but for Southern Nevada as a whole, of which we are a part of. So that would be my direction, is not just the 23,000 amount, but the remainder of the vaccine and test kits, considering the fact that we have been provided those by Southern Nevada Health District over this time, and they continue to provide things such as the test kits.
Thank you. Anyone else? I do appreciate the work that the Health District has done. When the COVID was first identified in the community, there was a great deal of work that they did in conjunction with the University Medical Center in getting testing up and running. I do have a concern, though, that whenever things like this occur, Boulder City's being asked to provide more on a per capita basis than other entities are. For instance, when the CARES Act money was distributed, it was distributed at the county level and not directly to Boulder City, at which time the Clark County retained at least half of the money that was designated for Boulder City. I don't know that there was any other community in Clark County that had that much of the revenue that was designated for Boulder City sent to the county level. So I have a concern that every time something like this occurs, Boulder City's being asked to do far more than what the per capita basis would be on a county level. It's certainly a worthwhile project. The council previously had designated $400,000 out of the rescue plan money to go to a health professional that will help this community, I believe. So we're making an investment as well. And those are all services that, by charter, the county is responsible for providing. But we have found that those services are not available at the level that we believe is important. So we've already designated a significant amount of money. I have no objection to contributing to this. Where the objection comes in, or the concern that I have comes in, is we're essentially, the recommendation from Councilmember Adams is that we go ahead and pay 3 times as much on a per capita basis that residents of the city of Las Vegas or unincorporated Clark County are being requested. Clark County did receive their own share of rescue plan funding, and some of that is designated for this type of work to be done. It's also their charter provision that they are to provide these services. So I don't have a problem doing it, but I think we should be in line with contributing the amount that other entities have already said they would contribute to the project. Councilmember Bridges?
Yeah, I'm sitting here and I'm scribbling numbers, and I'm looking at the $1.71 per capita, and with approximately 15,000 people, that would come to about $25,600. And, you know, using that amount of money, and I agree, and I think especially when we're getting to a point where we've pretty much obligated those funds for different projects, that we don't know what's going to come up in terms of needs within the community itself. So I would recommend that we spend the 25 or 26,000 based on what the other entities appear to be paying on a per capita basis.
Thank you. Councilmember Jorgensen?
Yes, I mean, in looking at this, I was thinking there's other cities also within Clark County, and if we all funded at that rate, that could be helpful for them. I agree with Councilwoman Bridges and the mayor that we do not understand what the needs of the community ongoing will be as a result of the experiences that we've experienced. We've seen it tonight as emergency aid came explaining. I mean, this is not typical for them, what's happening for them. So I too would look more around the 25,000 range, so that at least there's money or a cushion in there in case there's an unexpected need again in our community, so that we'd be able to fulfill that need.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Fox?
Yeah, I would feel more comfortable in the $25,000 range.
Anyone else? Again, I know that this will probably require a resolution to make these changes, but as far as the sense of the council, I would make a motion then that we look to rebudget $25,000 worth of the rescue plan money and direct it towards the efforts of the Health District Construction Fund.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you, Mr. Tedder. And again, thank you, Dr. Lagon. I understand 25,000 isn't going to get you very far, but we have needs out here as well.
I really want to say thank you to the council for...
If you could come to the microphone, please.
Hi, Fermín again, District Health Director. No, I just want to say thank you to the council for paying attention to our request. We understand your concerns, which are valid concerns, and the responsibility you have with all the the residents of this area. We are very grateful to receive your support, and we just we keep working with other institutions across the state to try to generate those funds. But we are really grateful for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, you know, you and your staff have done a fantastic job throughout the pandemic. My compliments to all the work you've done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We will take a 15-minute recess and come back in session at 7:10. Thank you. Thank you. I will call the meeting back to order. Item 13 has been removed from the agenda, so we will proceed to item number 14. Mr. City Manager.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Tonight for your consideration is matters pertaining to the Boulder City Police Protective Association bargaining unit employees. So this is a two-part item. So Part A is a public hearing on the collective bargaining agreement, and then Part B is approval of a resolution. Madam City Attorney, do I proceed with the public hearing first?
It's at the pleasure of the mayor.
Would you like me to go through the staff report first, or?
Yes, if you could have an introduction or an overview of the item, please.
Great. So the collective bargaining agreement for the Boulder City Police Protective Association expired on June 30th of 2022. And when a contract expires, the city and the Police Protective Association negotiate in good faith on the mandatory subjects of the bargaining. And that includes health insurance benefits, leave, and wages, and more. So for the better part of the year, myself, City Attorney Brittany Walker, Administrative Services Director Bryce Bolt, and our support staff have diligently met with the representatives from the PPA and negotiated a new collective bargaining agreement. And something to note, the language had not been updated in over a decade, so this was a really great chance to update the agreement, to bring that in line with our current practices and model similar agreements in other jurisdictions. So to go over a few of the main points that are changes in the contract, so there was a holiday added, Juneteenth. Comp time was increased to 120 hours from 80 hours, and that's due to FLSA having a higher threshold for public safety. And then moving on to economics, we did add education incentives. So when an officer has a bachelor's degree or a master's degree or obtains an advanced post certificate, they get a flat dollar bonus for that achievement. And sick leave did not increase, but it did open it up to immediate family not in the household to be able to use that. So like taking a parent that doesn't live with you to a doctor's appointment or something like that. Going over the actual wage increases. So for financial year 23, the year that we're in currently, that's between wages and benefits, it's a $338,864 increase. For financial year 24, both wages and benefits increased $591,759. And then for financial year 25, wages and benefits total increase of $744,422. Funding does exist in our current budget to cover these increases and subsequent years of the agreement. They will be budgeted for, and I'm confident that the city will be able to keep moving forward through this 3-year agreement, and then it will be up for renegotiation at that time. I stand for any questions before the public hearing.
Thank you. And again, this will require a public hearing, so if council members do have any specific questions at this time, this would be the time for that. However, any other comments should probably be reserved for after the public hearing. Any specific questions at this time? All right, we will then open the public hearing on this item. Is there anyone present who would like to speak regarding this item? All right, we will take anyone wishing to call in at this time. Again, this is a public hearing regarding matters pertaining to an employment contract for the Police Protective Association bargaining unit. The phone number is 702-589-9629. This is a public hearing regarding matters pertaining to contract with the Boulder City Police Protective Association bargaining unit. Anyone wishing to comment may call 702-589-9629. Madam City Clerk, were there any emails received regarding this matter?
No comments were received.
Thank you. All right, hearing no one, we will close the public hearing and move to item B of this, approval or discussion of Resolution 7539. Any questions or comments? I would just say I know this has been a months-long process. You know, whenever two sides come together in agreement, that means that probably nobody's elated, but nobody's sad either. And at this time, with the high inflation that we have, it makes it even more difficult for employees to buy the things they need, but it also means that the taxpayers of Boulder City are paying more for everything they need to buy as well. I will go ahead and make a motion then for approval of Resolution 7539.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, thank you. That brings us to item 15, matters pertaining to the Police Supervisors Association.
Thank you. This is a similar agreement to the one that you just saw. This is for the sergeants and lieutenants within the police department. So this is the Police Supervisors Association bargaining unit employees, and their agreement expired in June 30th of this year. So when a contract expires, again, the Police Protective Association and the city negotiate in good faith on the mandatory subjects of bargaining, and that includes health insurance benefits, leave and wages, and more. So the city and the Police Supervisors Association have negotiated the terms and conditions of the new agreement, and that would be in effect from July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2025, a 3-year agreement. And again, over the past 8 months, myself, City Attorney Walker, and Administrative Services Director Bolt, and our support staff met with representatives from the Police Supervisors Association to negotiate this new collective bargaining agreement. And with this agreement, it also added the Juneteenth holiday, increased comp time to 120 hours due to that FLSA higher threshold for public safety. It did also add the education incentives, so that flat dollar bonus that's available for people that have a certain degree or advanced post certificates. And then it did open up their sick leave to immediate family not in their household. One item to note on this item, so there was a handout. The red line was correct in the packet. However, the PPA clean copy of the agreement was accidentally attached to this item, so the clean copy was handed out. So going over the financial breakdown for this 3-year agreement, the total for the 3 years is $644,737 in total. So for this fiscal year, financial year 23, between wages and benefits, it increases $139,111. For financial year 24, wages and benefits increase $226,617. And then for fiscal year 25, the wages and benefits increase $279,009. And funding exists in the current financial year 23 budget, and we will continue to budget for this agreement through the 3-year term. I'm here for any questions before the public hearing.
Thank you. Again, there will be a public hearing, so if anyone has specific questions, you may ask those now, but you may want to hold any comments until the public hearing is closed. Any specific questions? All right, we will open the public hearing on this item. Anyone present that would like to speak on this item? All right, we will take any phone calls. Again, this is a matter pertaining to the Boulder City Police Supervisors Bargaining Unit contract. The phone number is 702-589-9629. This is a public hearing regarding matters pertaining to the Boulder City Police Supervisors Association Bargaining Unit contract. Anyone wishing to call for public comment? The phone number 702-589-9629. Madam City Clerk, were there any emails received on this item?
No comments were received.
Thank you. Hearing no one, we will close the public hearing and move to consideration of Resolution 7540. Any questions or comments regarding this item? Anyone wishing to make a motion on Resolution 7540?
I'll move to approve resolution number 7540.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. And again, appreciation to yourself, Madam City Attorney, the Finance Department, everyone involved in bringing this to a resolution. That will bring us to our final public comment period. Anyone wishing to speak may do so on any subject. Members of the public will have up to 5 minutes to speak. As always, we do ask that you be civil and concise. Is there anyone present that would like to speak in the final public comment period? Seeing no one, we will ask for anyone wishing to call in. Again, the phone number is 702-589-9629. Again, this is the final public comment period for the city council meeting. Anyone wishing to call, the phone number is 702-589-9629. Madam City Clerk, were there any emails received for our final public comment?
Yes, Juan.
Please go ahead.
This public comment is provided by Andre Haynes, founder and CEO of the Armed Forces Chamber of Commerce. Everyone is invited to an Armed Forces Chamber Business Mixer sponsored by Patsy Brown on Wednesday, November 16th at the Boulder City Library. Armed Forces Chamber Business Mixers sponsored by Patsy Brown include a special presentation, swearing in of new members, updates, contests, plus prizes, and much more. Armed Forces Chamber Business Mixers, sponsored by Patsy Brown, feature an hour of networking starting at 3 p.m. and brief programs starting at 4 p.m. Armed Forces Chamber Business Mixers, sponsored by Patsy Brown, are open to the public and admission is free. For details, visit armedforceschamber.com. Again, visit armedforceschamber.com.
Thank you. Hearing no others, we will close our final public comment period. Move to city council reports. Councilmember Bridges.
Yes, now I can say I'm affiliated with emergency aid, and as I've always done, anybody who lives in Boulder City should not be struggling if they're dealing with an emergency and are unable to take care of their rent or utilities or need food. It is required that you call and make an appointment, but it is imperative that residents of Boulder City know that they can deal with emergencies in this way. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Jorgensen.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I appreciated the opportunity to work with at least both of you, and that I've learned a lot in this year and a half, and I appreciate your service and your willingness to come in and serve the community like you have. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fox.
Yeah, it really has been an honor serving with you guys, and I do appreciate everything I've learned this year and a half. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Adams.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I will take this opportunity as my first term nears its end. I want to offer my sincerest gratitude to everybody who has been there throughout the way, to my fellow council members. We may not have always seen eye to eye, but we all know how much work, time, effort, dedication this job takes. And for that, I appreciate all that we have contributed to advancing our city and community in the best way possible. To staff, for all that we have accomplished here as a city, we could not have done it without your support and without your help. So I absolutely want to thank you for that. And of course, my largest debt of gratitude is to the community who trusted me to be here to do the work, to put in the effort. And so to that, I offer again nothing but thanks and gratitude. And with that, I have nothing else to report.
Thank you. I will begin with a standard report. I was at the audit committee meeting this morning for the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. Obviously, the economy of Southern Nevada is heavily dependent on what that organization does. When I first became a member of the Convention and Visitors Authority, I was notified that I was appointed to the audit committee. This was following the removal of the CEO under circumstances that were not the best. They have a fairly new team there. I believe they've done an excellent job, and the finances for that organization are very sound. They have reserves that will be able to pay off the bonds that were nearly $1 billion for the West Hall. That is a spectacular facility. If you ever have an opportunity to take a look at that, I would encourage you to go see that. They also have initiated programs where they're auditing many functions that they engage in, one of those being the monorail. That, for the first time ever, actually made money this year. So congratulations to the efforts that they've made. This is my last meeting as mayor of Boulder City. It certainly has been an honor to do so. It's my hometown. I know that the folks that are up here, it's a challenge for all of us, and especially these past 2 years with the pandemic. I certainly would have preferred never to have heard the word COVID before, but that was a challenge, and we have been working our way through it. Again, our city staff, we've had changes in that, and I think they've been very positive changes. And I want to thank the individuals that are here for each of our meetings, city clerk, city attorney, city manager, but all the other employees for the city that make this a great community to live in. Without those people doing their jobs and doing them well, Boulder City wouldn't be the place that it is. But I would also ask all those that follow on city council to always pay attention to why Boulder City is what it is. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to maintain what we have here in this community, but we've been able to do it for many years, and that's why we all love this community. So thank you all very much, and we are adjourned.